in your story, it's like everything started with a mindset shift. How has your mindset shifted?
I think the biggest thing was like just adopting a belief system that sets you up for success. Like it doesn't have to be true. It's easier said than done, but like I'm going to believe that I can finish this race because it does me no good not believing that. I mean, it really comes down to belief. If you don't believe you can, you won't. And if you're also not willing to fail, you won't try it to begin with.
You are listening to the Take a Step podcast, where we help young men reject complacency and take purposeful action every day. My name's Josh Johnston. Let's take a step. Welcome back to another episode of the Take a Step podcast. Guys, today we are joined by someone who, just from the outside looking in, seems like running has just kind of like transformed his life. And it's really cool to see from the someone else's perspective. So I'm excited to hear more about the background behind the story of that. So with that being said, Mason Newberry, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Josh, appreciate you having me on, dude.
100%, dude. I'm excited to hear a little bit about this wild and seems like almost like an overnight story of you going from somebody just, and I've only seen it from, third person. So I'm excited to really hear a little bit of the background of it, but just somebody who didn't really have much of an aspiration for, especially endurance sports, but fitness in general, and now seeing what you're doing right now is incredible to see, and we can dive into that. But I'd love to open it up to you just to get started, just to kind of introduce yourself however you think it makes sense. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, dude, appreciate it. So I work in real estate, kind of in the land entitlement and self-storage space, and then over the last 3 years, I've pretty much spent all of my free time focused on ultra running. Now I'm about to launch a coaching business to help people, find purpose through running and endurance training. So that's something I'm really passionate about. But yeah, like you said, the last, what feels like overnight, but the last 3 years have been a lot of hard work and a lot of effort towards running.
Yeah. So cool, man. Well, I'd love to just like step back into, hearing how this all got started. Like I know you mentioned, the ultra training is what takes up most of your time right now, but we look back 3 years ago. How would your answer change between what you spent your free time doing?
Yeah, it's probably night and day. So, I graduated Auburn 2020 in December. So, the 2 years after graduating, I was kind of, doing the typical going through the motions. Not much has changed. You're just kind of swapping school for work, but you're still kind of, drinking sometimes after work during the week, looking forward to the weekend and going out. And, for me, that it kind of felt empty, kind of felt like it was leading to nothing, and it wasn't really exciting. I mean, I enjoyed probably more than I should have the going out and partying at Auburn, but it kind of seemed like, all right, we're adults now. Like, is this really what life is going to be like, where you spend 5 days of the week working just to like get to the weekend and go, go out, get drunk and rinse, repeat. So that was, kind of went on for about 2 years after I graduated. I was aware of the fact that I didn't want to keep doing that, but, it's what your friends are doing. It's what your circle's doing. Like there's no real way out or easy way out when you're in it. And so, yeah, I mean, I really wasn't doing anything fitness related. I mean, I'd, maybe go on a run twice a week, like a mile or 2 miles, and, pretend to lift weights, do some push-ups or something to like count as a workout. But, I think it was that. And then Ty, my older brother, who, this was leading up to Thanksgiving of 2022. He, I think, put an idea out in the family group chat of like, let's all go do the Rosemary 10K turkey trot. And I was like, what? Are we becoming the family that like runs on Thanksgiving? Like, I'd rather be the family that drinks mimosas on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I remember just side note, I was talking with him the other day because he knew that I was going to have you on the show. And he was telling me the story, and I remember like word for word, it was something along the lines where he put that out in the chat, and your response was like, "Why the hell would I wake up on Thanksgiving and go run?"
Like that doesn't sound like something I'd be wanting to do, but
Yeah. Hey guys, we'll jump right back into the conversation, but I want to give y'all a quick look into MMP Customs. They make all of the Take a Step apparel, and they are the official sponsor of the Take a Step podcast. Check them out.
Hey guys, I'm Nathan Mooney, co-owner of MMP Customs. We are a custom merchandise company specializing in screen printing and embroidery. If you're a business, band, school, or any other type of organization that needs custom merchandise, MMP Customs is the place. Whether you have a big apparel need for an event or need to outfit your company, we offer a no minimum guarantee and have never missed an approved deadline. At MMP Customs, you will experience the best customer service there is. Let our family outfit yours. Visit mmpcustoms.com. That's mmpcustoms.com.
you know, it was, I don't know when exactly that idea popped up. I think it was 2 or 3 months before. So, you know, I did play some high school sports. I wasn't great. I wasn't bad. I played lacrosse. You know, I had some good games, but I think if you asked other people, people wouldn't name me necessarily as far as like who the athlete was. But there definitely was some like underlying competitiveness that like I just have. So I was like, well, if we're going to do this, I'm going to train for it. And, you know, I mean, that training wasn't anything too serious, but, you know, I was living at, by Bobby Jones at the time. So I would run the 2-mile loop around Bobby Jones golf course, you know, kind of every day. And that was my training. I would, you know, run 2 miles, and I thought that was a lot. I even remember where I moved on to running 2 laps around, and that was 4 miles. And I would come back and, like my roommates would be like, how far do you run? I'd be like 4 miles. And I thought I was like big shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we, you know, trained probably 2 or 3 months to run that 10K, and, you know, went out there, ran it, did decent. But I really enjoyed just the act of like training for something and then like seeing your work pay off. And 2, I realized like, hey, this is a chance to compete again and like train for something, and you can in real time like see it pay off. Mm-hmm. So after that, you know, that kind of sparked my interest in doing something else, and I had signed up for the Fort Lauderdale triathlon in March. So a few months after that, I think it was like in between a sprint triathlon and whatever the normal Olympic distance triathlon was. So it was like a 500 meter swim, 20-mile bike, 6-mile run or something like that. But I started training for that. And what I realized was that the training was kind of like twofold. It was one is it gave me an excuse to kind of bail on some of the nights out. I used it as kind of like, because before I didn't really have an excuse, but I wasn't enjoying it. And I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Just tell them I'm going to go sit at home. So it was kind of like, this gave me an excuse. I could say, you know, I've got to get to bed early. I've got a long run or a bike in the morning.
So you were already kind of looking for a way to step out of that lifestyle a little bit. Yeah.
And it was hard to decline invites or, you know, stay home when there wasn't like a real reason. So this kind of gave me an opportunity to take a step back from doing, you know, the whole go out drink routine. But then I also found I loved the training aspect, and I love having something on the calendar. So that was huge for me, having something on the calendar. And yeah, I trained for the few months leading up to March, did the triathlon, and had an awesome time, did, you know, decent. And then immediately after, I was like, all right, what's next? Let's take it a notch higher. And then that process kind of just ripple effect on until, you know, we got to a 250-mile ultra this May.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's obviously a lot that transpired in the between finishing the initial 10K and where you're at now, but like what is it for you that gave you the bug? Like is there something in there where it's connected more to a deeper purpose? Do you just love the training and being outside? Do you love the physical component to it, or is there something a little bit deeper than that for you?
Man, there's so many elements to it that I love. I think in a way it kind of started out as, like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, whether it was a real chip or not, who's to say? But, I kind of had this image, or not my image, but I know there was probably this image of who I was at Auburn, and like I kind of wanted to flip that. So, I had gone off Instagram for like 2 years after I graduated, and like the first post I had back was like what I thought was a pretty cool post from doing that first triathlon. I think, I like the idea of like flipping the image that people had of me from back when I was at Auburn. But then just like the training, I loved the training. I loved the discipline that you had to have to, actually show up each day and do the training, do the work. And I mean, it just has a ripple effect on all other aspects of your life. It got me in shape. So, I looked better. I felt more confident. If you're working with people, like they can see it, someone who's fit versus not fit, like you're going to get people are going to lean towards you over someone else. I noticed like I was switching some jobs. I noticed like jobs were lining up easier. Finding new friendships, relationships. So it kind of just had a positive ripple effect in all areas of life. And it was like, let's just keep this train going.
Yeah, no, dude. And a lot of what you're saying, I resonate wholeheartedly with, because I haven't dipped into it to the level you have yet, but I ran my first ultra at the end of last year. And it's like, and before that, I ran a marathon the year before that, and like these steps that I've taken at a little bit of a slower pace than you have, but like it's really cool to see how in my personal life it's doing things that are very uncommon, like sparks the interest of others, I think, and it makes you like people want to know a little bit more about somebody who's doing things that are very uncommon, and that's what I've noticed is like, and there's some Jesse Itzler. Yeah, he talks. I've heard him talk a lot about like if you want to be noticed or if you want to be interesting, do things that people are interested to know more about, and like the way to do that is by doing things that go against the grain. And like running 100 miles in a race is not something that's very common for most people. So it's like doing something that like it's building out the discipline, but it's also giving you the ability to like stand out and be uncommon amongst even the uncommon people in today's world. So like, is that something that like, does that kind of sum up what you're saying a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think one big aspect of it is confidence. I mean, training for something, doing it, like getting it done, getting that achievement, like that builds confidence that translates to like any other aspect of life. So whether that's like relationships, whether that's, job interviews, if you can do something hard and like work towards it over a long period of time, like that translates whether you recognize it or not. But definitely too, I mean, there's something cool too, like about doing something that that not many people are one doing or two think they can even do. Like, a lot of people think ultras are, so unrealistic and difficult. And like, I honestly think they're not as crazy as people think. It's just most people don't believe they can do them. And because they don't believe they can do them, they can't and they won't.
100%, dude. It for me, like I talk about it like it's an identity thing. I remember when I was like probably 3 years ago, I want to say, when I was first starting to like be interested in running, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do the 5Ks and 10Ks, but I'm like, I'll never do a marathon. Like a marathon's like not me. I remember watching, I remember Nick Bear came out with his documentary on running the Leadville 100. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, it would be really cool to say that, but just like, I won't ever be a marathon runner. And I was like putting that label on myself, and it was like shifting my identity. But the second I was like, hey, like it would be cool to like do that one day. Let me just find a race and sign up for it. And like the moment I actually like submitted my payment, signed up for a marathon, like a switch flipped for me where I felt like, okay, well, like I said I wasn't going to, I was never going to be able to do something. Now I'm signed up for it. I'm obligated to do it. And it kind of like shifted my identity a little bit. And then like after that, it's, you know, the whole philosophy behind Take a Step is like, that was one step into it. And then like, what else is possible? Like you were talking about with the 10K, all right, the triathlon was next. And then it's like been this ripple effect like you're talking about. And I love how you relate it back to life, because I'm a firm believer in the quote, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. It's like the confidence that comes from the discipline of the training and being able to do things that are uncommon physically is gonna transfer over into your confidence on how you show up at work and how you show up at home with your family and how you show up, you know, even when it comes to your faith. It's like showing up in a way where I can build out these disciplines. So yeah, it's really cool to hear you talk about it in that way, because, you know, I love the mindset that's developed because as a result of the fitness that we build and how that transfers over into life. So I love that you talk about that. I want to dive into a little bit of the story behind Cocodona, because I know that's something that was the pinnacle for you at the time. You know, when you signed up for it. And for those that don't know, Cocodona is, yes, I'm about to say this correctly, and you're hearing this correctly, a 250-mile race straight through. It takes, you know, 4 or 5 days, and it's you know, one of the peak races in the world of ultramarathon running. But let's start with this. If 3 years ago I would have said, hey, you know, in you know, roughly 3 years time, you're going to run 250 miles at one time, what would you have said?
I feel like you're talking about me. I mean, I would have been surprised if you had told me 3 years ago that I would have run 100 miles or 50 miles. I mean,
yeah,
I think 3 years ago, the idea of running a marathon, one, sounded undesirable, but two, it was like, you know, I wasn't even thinking about doing that.
yeah,
I mean, that distance now, like, you know, everything's relative, you know, but to me, that distance now, I'm like, okay, that's a long run on the weekend. But yeah, man, going back so Cocodona was in May. So, I mean, we're not even 100 days away from when Cocodona was, or when I finished it. And I had signed up a year previously when they did like a 5-day live stream for the whole event. So I was watching it pretty closely, and I think because it was so far away, like it was a year out, I kind of like just had this urge to sign up and then be like, well, I've got 12 months. Surely I can figure it out. And like, I will say I had some pretty great momentum from, you know, I had done a couple races. I'd done the Georgia Jewel 50 miler in September. And then in May, I did the Keys 100. And then shortly after that, I signed up for Cocodona, which was the following May. And I think I just, you know, I had the confidence from doing those races. And I was like, well, if other people can complete this 250-mile distance, like there's no reason I shouldn't be able to do it. And that's kind of the mindset I've had towards all of these things. And when you really do get out there and do these races, like when you went and did the Georgia Jewel, like you probably noticed like the people out there are very normal people. Like they're not, you're not looking at them and thinking like, oh, these look like Olympic athletes or some like stellar athletes. I mean, it's normal looking people who are just doing extraordinary things. So yeah, I mean I signed up for Cocodona about 11 months, a year out. And once I was pretty much 9 months out, that was like my entire focus outside of work. You know, I had a whiteboard at the time, and it was like, there was a question on there, and it was like, does this move me closer to a successful Cocodona finish? Yes or no? And it was like, yes, do it. No, don't do it. And that's kind of like how I based like every decision on like whether I would do something or not do it, was would they bring me closer to crossing the finish line next May at Cocodona?
Dude, that's like, you talk about the discipline behind that. So like, was that basically your system, like your operating system for life was like, it's got to filter through one of these two?
Essentially, I mean, there's always going to be exceptions, but
Yeah.
yeah, if most things, if it didn't filter through yes or no of bringing me closer to the finish line, then it was, I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, dude. And like what I hear that's a theme throughout your story and this is like, most people hear the term mindset and they think it's a bunch of fluff. Like and there, to their point, there's a lot of motivational content out there that's put out where it's you almost like become numb to the whole conversation behind mindset because of what all's out there. But dude, like just hearing it from in your story, it's like everything started with a mindset shift, and that had a direct reflection in the actions that you were taking. Like how has your mindset shifted or evolved over the course of the past 3 years?
Um, I think the biggest thing was like just adopting a belief system that like sets you up for success. Like it doesn't have to be true. It's easier said than done, but like I'm gonna believe that I can finish this race because it does me no good not believing that.
Mm,
And I kind of reinforce that with milestones along the way. So whether that's completing a certain phase of the training block, or like hitting certain workouts, hitting certain paces, doing some races along the way that build that confidence. But I mean, it really comes down to belief. I think I've said a few times that, it's as easy as believing it can be done. And I believe that's true. You know, Getting yourself to believe it, that's maybe harder. And I don't know if I can necessarily describe how you get there, but
hmm
um, if you don't believe you can, you won't. And if you're also not willing to fail, then you won't try it to begin with.
Yeah, dude. Like you think about Roger Bannister story, right? It's
Yeah.
the 4 minute mile. It's like up until, I think it was 1954, but people have been running for a long time, and like that 4 minute mile was the thing that was considered to be impossible for the human body to be able to achieve. And then in 1954, after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of people running, one person does it. And since then, there's been like over 100 people that have done it in the past 50 years. So it's, and that now I think it's like 340 something. But like that's exactly what you're talking about is people believed it wasn't possible, and for hundreds of years it wasn't done. Then once it was proven that it can be done, people now have the belief it's like, okay, well, it can be done. And now all of a sudden there's hundreds of people that are doing it. So it's like, yeah, it's so true. And in my opinion, that like kind of disproves the argument that mindset isn't just fluff, because, if it wasn't fluff, why have so many people done it in a short period of time after it was first broken?
Yeah. I mean, there's proof of concept.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, belief is huge. And I think, just being open to fail. I mean, the thing that I've been saying to myself recently is like, it's not that serious. Like, if you DNF a race, it's not that serious.
Mm.
Rarely are you going to find yourself in a position that like it's actually life and death at one of these ultras. So it's like, yeah, it's a grand, big event, extremely hard adventure, whatever you want to call it. But like, odds are that like you die very low. It's not that serious. Like
Yeah.
you'll end up at an aid station with some snacks and candy and get driven back to like the start line. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, okay, if you fail, like the 40 miles out of the 100 that you were supposed to get to, like that's 40 miles further than the person who's sitting on the couch at home. So like, it's still a crazy accomplishment. But I mean, if you're afraid to, you know, fail or look silly for DNFing a race, I mean, you're never going to go out there and finish one.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me a little bit. I want to hear some of the details of Cocodona. So you get, how early did you get out there? A couple days in advance to kind of acclimate to the elevation and everything, or when did you get out there?
Yeah, so I got out there just a couple days before. I was busy with work. I would have loved to get out there a couple of weeks and get on the course, but I got out there Friday. No, I got out there Saturday, and the race started Monday morning. So got out there Saturday, checked in Sunday, and then race started 5 a.m. Monday morning. Started just north of Phoenix. It goes all the way up to Flagstaff, kind of going around up in the high desert through Sedona and then up to Flagstaff. But yeah, it took me 5 days, 107 hours. I think I did sleep for probably on average 2 hours a night, which is probably a lot more than most people. Everyone kind of does their sleep differently, but yeah, it started 5 a.m. Monday morning. First time I saw my crew was at mile 77. And yeah, took a 2 hour nap, then woke up for day two and kept on going.
Yeah, dude, that's so crazy to hear because like the only comparison I have is like my experience, which was the 50 miler. So we had an aid station at like 18, 32, 36. So to hear that you went like 1.5 the full distance in my ultra before you ever saw an aid station is nuts to me. So like what is like talk about like pacing throughout the race. Like, do you even care about pacing, or are you just focused on feel, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, so there were also a few aid stations along the way, but the first one that I had my crew at
Yeah.
was at 77. But as far as pacing, I mean, you know, it's on feel. I
Yeah.
mean, you're out there likely for 4 to 5 days. People, I did run flats and downhills from the start, but anything that had like some degree of incline, you're hiking that.
Yeah.
It's really not even comparable to a 50 miler or a 100 miler, just in like, you know, the mental side of it and the physical side. Um, the effort is a lot less. I mean, if you're in like the middle or back of the pack, it's a lot less than an 100 miler. So, you know, you're not doing quite as much damage on the body
Hmm.
as you would if you're going like faster pace for a shorter distance. Um, but I think the cutoff pace was 30-minute mile pace, so it's
Okay.
pretty reasonable. But you are climbing like the elevation of Everest and a half over the course of the 250 miles. So you know, it's not really walking flat.
Yeah.
It's more of like a 5 day hiking expedition with
Well,
some.
and it didn't wasn't there some mud and rain throughout the
Yeah,
event?
so we lucked out in that it wasn't as hot as it usually is in May coming out of like Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
Usually you start the race and it's 37 miles with 10,000 feet of elevation gain all exposed. And we hit like a 5 day cold front that kind of traveled south to north along the course as we
Hmm.
went along with it. And at first everyone was pumped up about it, but like night one, there was like hailstorm. Night two, you're going down a mountain with so much mud that like you can't even, like, on paper you're like, okay, this is a 17-mile downhill section. I could be able to make up a bunch of time. And then like you're actually out there and it's like you're walking through like swamp mud down a mountain and you're going like half a mile per hour. And that was how like a few different portions of the race were. There were some other flat areas that were like 10 miles through cow pastures that, uh, you know, you would think you could make up some time, but it was just sludge. You'd pick up your feet and you'd have, 2 inches of mud on the bottom of your shoes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was, I mean, we hit all different, weathers, ecosystems. It was mountains, desert, forest.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd imagine through all that terrain, like you need a good bit of stability from your muscles and like broken down at that point. I'm sure that probably added a large factor of uncomfort to the experience.
Yeah, well, one thing I guess I forgot to note that's pretty important to my Cocodona experience was at like mile 35, something in my left ankle popped. And, when you're doing a race like this or even a 100 miler, you expect something bad to happen at some point. That might be gut issues, that might be, your knee hurting, but you kind of expect that in the later part of the race. So having that happen, not even, not even like 50%, not even like 20% into the
Yeah.
race, and knowing that like I still had 230, 220 miles left to go, that was a point where if I hadn't like in leading up, like done a lot of preparation and mental work, that could have really broken me. Because like before the race, I tried to visualize all the positive things, but I also visualized everything that could possibly go wrong, so that when it did happen during the race, it wouldn't be foreign to me.
So like when you were you having like sessions of visualization, or was it just like throughout your day and thinking about the race?
Both. Some were kind of more intentional sessions where I'd sit down on the couch and go through different scenarios in my head. And then some were just kind of, you know, daydreaming, thinking of
Yeah.
different race stuffs. A lot of it was, during my training runs, but I had kind of walked through, every possible situation. I had listened to a few podcasts, the Distance to Empty podcast. They talk about all 200-mile races. And, one of the things they say is that, like, oftentimes people have really low moments because they'll have an issue pop up in the first 20 or 30 miles of a 200-mile race. And it's like, if you don't have your mind right, that'd be a real easy way to DNF when you're like, how
Yeah.
am I supposed to keep going for 4 more days, 200 miles with a swollen ankle?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of swollen ankle, I saw some of the shoes that, or the two pair of shoes that you had. Tell me about what the shoes look like now that you raced in.
Yeah, so yeah, mile like 35, I had the ankle issue. By mile 100, it was so swollen that I couldn't fit my feet into the shoes. So I had to cut my left shoe like 2 inches down on the tongue to like squeeze my foot into it. Wore that for about another 70, 100 miles, something like that. And then, at that point, I was getting really bad Achilles issues. There was some flame from all the uphill. And I think the shoes I was wearing was also irritating them. So to keep moving, I had cut the heels off of both of my uh, North Face shoes. So it was almost just like slippers.
Yeah.
And then I would tie the laces a little bit tighter so that they would stay on. And I mean, I wore shoes without a heel for, probably 75, 100 miles to finish the race.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy crap! I mean, and that like no issues with slipping off or anything like that.
I mean, there were some issues, but I mean, at that point in the race, I was going pretty slow. So,
Yeah, it's almost like the relief of not having something rubbing on your heels makes it so much more worth it.
yeah, I mean, it got so bad. Ty wanted me to muscle through it and keep going. I was like, no, dude, we gotta do something with these shoes. Like
Yeah.
I keep going. Like, so cut the heels off and it worked well. I was able to keep moving. That a race like that, it's 250 miles of problem solving. Like that's all it is.
It's a good way to put it.
It's not really a race. It's just like, all right, there's a problem. What are we going to do to fix it so that we can keep going? And then another problem will pop up, and you just kind of do that for 5 days straight.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you talk about, like we talked earlier about how all of this relates back to every area of life. I feel like problem solving in a situation like that where you're facing like physical like turmoil is like, all right, when things arise, when there's something that doesn't go my way, when I'm sitting in the office, like the comfort and ease that I'm able to process that situation is so much better than when I'm, beat down after 200 miles in the rain and the mud, and like everything I do has a direct result on whether I finish or not. I can handle this situation where a client responded a way that I don't appreciate.
Exactly. I mean, when you have the end goal and you're so clear on your why, and you're going to get there no matter what, it's like when a problem pops up, you don't freak out. It's like it's calm, and it's like, okay, like how are we going to address it, and how are we going to keep going?
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it translates to every aspect, work, life.
So since Cocodona, what else have you done? Have you done anything else?
Um, I think I took a decent break until this last weekend. I did a 100 miler out in outside of LA in the Angeles National Forest.
Yeah. What was the was it nice to get back into the ultra field? Did you feel anything lingering? Where were you at there?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, after Cocodona, I had actually, I think it was probably 2 weeks after, was kind of how long it took for me to kind of start getting back on ultra sign up and looking
Yeah.
for another race. And this is the AC 100 is like a very historic race. And I put my name on the wait list, and it was like 60 long, and I had completely forgot about it until about a month ago. I got an email that I got in, and that was, I think 3.5 weeks out from the race. And I'd still been doing some training, but nothing too intense. I was running maybe 20 miles a week, doing some cross training. But when I saw I got in, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Let's see what we can do. And I already asked a lot of my close friends and people to pace me for Cocodona. So I was like, we'll go out there, we'll do this one solo. Um, and yeah, we did it on Saturday, finished Sunday around lunchtime. It took 30 hours, and it was the first race I've done solo. It had 20,000 feet of elevation gain. The back 50 miles was net uphill, which I didn't realize going into it. So I had done the first half in 12 hours and was tracking for a 24-hour finish. But as I was headed out to the turnaround point, I was like, I've been going down the hill for the last few hours, and I'm going to have to come back up this. And yeah, it was a totally different experience doing it solo without a crew,
Yeah.
without racers.
I can imagine, especially going from like the logistics that the crew is handling in Cocodona to having nothing during this race. What, like, did you enjoy it? Will you do another one without a crew, or where's your head at there?
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I'll do another one without a crew, but it was definitely not as enjoyable. You don't have like going into an aid station. I mean, that's often what you look forward to when you're doing these races. Is like, okay, I've got 7 miles to the next aid station. I'll see my friends, my family, whatever, hype you up, and then
Yeah.
send you on your way. Um, this time it was like, there was no one there, which I think does in a way um, have its positives if you can handle it. It's because then you're relying on yourself. It's like, well, there's no reason to dilly dally. Like,
Yeah.
it's on me to finish this race. Like, let's get in and out of this aid station. So I was moving quickly through them. Um, but I will say this was the first race that I had a really hard time battling the mental demons that come in and, you know, try to tell you that you should quit. In all of my previous races, even Cocodona, I never thought about quitting or dropping out. I'd have the classic thoughts of like, I'm never going to run one of these again, or, you know, why'd I sign up for this? Or like, I'm not cut out for this. I mean, those are kind of typical thoughts that come up during an ultra, but I had never like actively had the thought of wanting to quit or drop out of a race until this one on Saturday, where I was like actively thinking on on like what my story would be for why I dropped out, where I was going to drop out, and the thing was like it. I mean, it was a tough course, but like it wasn't incredibly hard. I think, you know, I've been kind of reflecting on it. I think it kind of goes back to like, you know, having a strong why and like doing these races. Like every other big race I've done, like Cocodona, the Keys, and Georgia Jewel, like those were on my calendar for a long time. And like it was really important for me to finish those races. I had other people beyond myself invested in, you know, going to the races, traveling, you know, putting up with my training and like not being around as much. So I think just this race being more spur of the moment kind of made it less important to me. And which, you know, I had to remind myself that like, I think David Goggins calls like the 1 second decision or whatever. And like, I was like, all right, well, think about like tomorrow, like, how am I going to feel if I quit? And I was like, well, not good. But then it's like, well, you know, I wouldn't really care because it wasn't an important race. It's like you're just telling yourself all this nonsense. And you don't have a crew there to like say, what are you talking about? Like, you're getting back out there. So it was definitely a mental battle, but it was cool to, you know, come out on top and stick with it. I did notice that once the sun came out on Sunday morning, like it kind of reset my system, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, we're going to finish this thing. But when I was hiking, you know, a mile per hour in the middle of the night on like hour 24 with no sleep, no crew, and no one around me, it was a battle.
Yeah, I can imagine. Dude, like, as we're talking about these you know, these huge feats that you've accomplished, and for the person out there that has the interest, that loves the idea of thinking about, you know, what if I went out and accomplished something hard and did something hard, but they also see where they're at now and what it would take to get there, and they think that, you know, it's not attainable for them. What would you say to someone who's in those shoes?
You know, I mean, and it's funny because I have this conversation a lot with, you know, with people asking me about it, and I tell them, I'm like, dude, you could do it. Like, there's nothing really special about me. Like, it's one, it's not as hard as it looks, and two, it's like, I think people compare it to, you know, the difficulty of like a half marathon or marathon, which if you're running it and racing it, like those are hard efforts. It's a short amount of time, but if you compare like racing a marathon versus doing a 50 miler to finish, those are two very different things. And, you know, I think it's very doable. I mean, I didn't run my first marathon until I'd already done 200 milers and a 50 miler. And the marathon was hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different kind of hard. I honestly think, and I'm interested in your take on this, that like there's something special about the 50-mile distance, and that when you finish that distance, that there's something in your brain that switches where you all of a sudden believe like, yeah, I could do a 100-miler. I could do any of these distances. If someone said, get out of the car right now and you got to run 50 miles home, like, yeah, it would suck, but I'm confident I could do it. I think there's something like about that distance that, and because I think, you know, 50K, that's too close to a marathon.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's not as, I don't think it has as much of like the hype or just like.
No, I agree with that. Like that I've never thought about it that way, but there was definitely like a mental shift in my mind after the 50 where it's just like, I don't know. It's like the 50K wouldn't have done it for me, but like I don't feel like I will sign up for a 100-miler at some point, but I feel like crossing the finish line at the 50 is like whatever endurance thing. I feel like if I was called to sign up for it, if I needed to sign up for it, like I feel like, okay, well I know how I train for this. I know the just the adversity that I went through for 11 hours in that 50 miles and how much distance I covered, the elevation throughout, just like the process in general. I feel like I can replicate that process at scale for wherever I need to go at this point.
Yeah, dude, there's something about that distance. I mean, I think you drive 50 miles in the car, it takes a long time. So comprehending that like mentally as far as like going that distance by foot. A few of my friends I've gotten to do ultras like 50 mile. I'm like, dude, just get a 50-mile finish. And I promise you, like, there'll be this switch that flips where you're all of a sudden like, yeah, no doubt I can do a 100-miler. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't make it any easier, but like you have that belief in yourself that you can go do it.
Yeah, I love that. What's next on the list for you? Like, do you want to continue to just like sign up and do these races? Do you want to build something out of it? I know you've started to build out a little bit of a personal brand off of it, but like where do you want to take this newfound lifestyle that you're building out now?
Yeah, so there's kind of like two things that I'm working on going forward, and one is my coaching business, Achieving Ultra, that I'm going to be launching soon. And that's really just to help people find purpose through endurance training and running, because that's really what it's done for me. And it's had, like we talked about, the ripple effect on all aspects of my life. So I really want to help people who are kind of in the similar phase of life as I was, post-grad, kind of drifting through the motions, find something to work towards, which will then have that ripple effect on their personal life, their spiritual life, their work, and give meaning to their life. And then too, as far as the running goes for me, I've proven to myself that I can go these distances, and I'm planning to spend the next 8 months transitioning to a lot more intentional training to ideally get to a pro level. So that's my goal, is to really, I'm not going to be signing up for as many races, and I'm going to get really intentional with my training and train like a pro. And my goal is to get to that level. Because
I am not fully aware of it yet, and I know a lot of people aren't either, but like, what does it mean to be a pro runner, especially when it comes to the world of endurance training?
Kind of just means you're sponsored.
Okay.
Unless you're like the really elite pros, it's typically just a small sponsorship, and maybe they pay for your race entry or something else. But that's essentially it. Brand sponsors you. The sponsorship is less of my concern, but more I just want to be able to compete. I've got a race end of April that I'm not going to announce yet, but that's a very it's what all the pros do, and I'm hoping I can train hard over the next 8 months and get out there and compete.
Have you and like another thing too that we haven't really talked about, like it's not like you're just going out there and completing these races. Like there's you've won a couple. Like it's I see the times. I remember when I was training, I was like, yeah, Mason's starting. And I would like see some of your Strava times. I'm like, dude, holy crap! It's not like he's just going out there and like compete or like completing these races. Like you're putting down some serious both mileage and times.
Well, I'd say I'm like local good. I can do good at the local races, but I'm not yet national good, and that's where I want to get to.
Yeah, I love it. Well, cool, man. There's one question I love asking just at the end of most of my episodes, when it just in relating back to like taking that step for people that are in the shoes that you were in, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Like, in your opinion, like how can those who feel stuck and are kind of just like living in complacency finally take that step to live really with more, like in what you're talking about with your brand, with more purpose in their life?
Dude, find something, sign up for it. It doesn't have to be a race. It can be, it could be anything, but get something on the calendar, tell people about it so you're held accountable, and then you got to work towards it. I mean, I think that's the simplest thing is, voice what you're doing so that you have accountability. And like you said, take that step. I mean, if you don't sign up for anything, you're never going to do anything. So sign up for it and figure out how to do it after.
Yeah. That's like the hardest step is just like, dude, hit submit,
go
find it, sign up for it. And now you're bound to it. Like you got to do it at this point. Awesome. Well, dude, it's been good kind of reconnecting and hearing a little bit more about your story. I appreciate you jumping on today. For those that are listening and want to follow along with what you're doing, maybe they're interested in the coaching business that you're building out, or just like following along with the races that you're doing, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Achieving Ultra and online at achievingultra.com.
Awesome. Love it, man. Well, dude, appreciate you jumping on the show today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Josh, this was awesome.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for listening to another episode of the Take a Step podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave a rating or a review on whichever platform you're listening. And always remember, no matter where you are on your growth journey, every mile begins with a step. We'll talk to you in the next episode.